Hi, my name is Eliza. I am so excited to be here, I guess, in my room, but also on your screen to talk to you about zines, and namely to talk about how we're going to turn your oral history into a zine, which is something that I have been doing under the direction of Dr. Beth Clement, specifically talking about queer history here in Utah. So this is something I'm really passionate about. I just graduated from the U recently as a history major. I have read oral histories as part of my research. I've also conducted a few oral histories, and I've also made a ton of zines, some just for fun, not related to history at all, some about broader history, and now using oral histories. So I hope that this is fun. I hope it's relaxing. If you're feeling nervous because you're not super creative, don't worry. Everything we're doing today is for everyone at every level. It's not going to be a super intense writing or art workshop. It's going to be really simple and hopefully really fun. If you have not read and watched the video that I put in the supply list, please, please, please go and do that, especially if you're not at all familiar with zines, because I'm not really going to talk about the history at all today. And you really need that information to understand what we're doing and yeah, to know what's going on. So make sure that you have watched that you have read that, so you're up to speed. And let's jump into zine making. I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully do it right. Okay, sweet. So we are talking about transforming oral histories into zines. And the first question, of course, is why make a zine with your oral history project? I'm not really sure if Dr. Basso is going to require you to make a zine as part of your final project for the class. If he doesn't, I still strongly encourage you to do it. And at least these exercises will help you think about your oral history a lot more deeply and sort of flesh out some of your own analysis and ideas on that subject. Most oral histories are only used for academic papers, so we usually only get a couple sentences from an oral history. All the information contained in it is really spread out over all these different papers, and we don't ever really have this public interaction with oral history collections. It's pretty rare. So zines offer a lot of benefits that an academic paper won't. Some of those benefits are accessibility. Like I said, not a lot of people are reading academic papers. They're not going to the library to look at oral histories unless they're historians or scholars. So this makes them a lot more accessible. Zines already have a really vibrant culture with an interested audience. So even if this is your first time ever hearing about zines, I promise there's a whole subculture going on. Lots of people are making zines and are reading zines. There's festivals all over the world. So it's a nice way to tap into a really different culture and bring these oral histories to life there. Like I said, it's much more diverse than just the academic audience. And when you make these zines, you're also bringing awareness to other oral histories in the collection. So I think all of you are going to be donating your oral history to the Marriott Library after you're done with this class, which is awesome. But we don't want them to just end up in the library just wasting away with no one reading them. So if you make a zine that not only lets people into the oral history you did, but it lets them know that there's this whole collection at the library, especially if you put a little note in there saying that there are more oral histories if they're interested. Another great benefit, and I don't really have a better term for this, but zines are a lot more intimate than writing on the internet or, again, in an academic journal. In your zine, you can focus solely on the oral history itself. You don't have to make an argument. You don't have to contextualize it into bigger history if you don't want to. It can really be this very intimate and focused portrait of whoever you conducted the oral history with. The tangibility of zines also makes the reading experience a lot more special and intimate. I don't know how else to describe it, but holding a little book and it's just you reading it alone feels really different than reading on a screen, which is how we do a lot of our reading now. And especially when the maker has also made all of the images that go in a zine, it just feels a lot more special and you feel more connected to it. Um, Another nice thing is that you can include your own thoughts and feelings, which again is really different than other areas of academia where you sort of keep your thoughts and opinions out. Well, I guess you keep your thoughts in, but you know what I mean, right? That it's not really this emotive writing process. But with a zine, you could really include your own thoughts about the oral history, your own experience of taking the oral history. You can include like random information that it reminds you of. Like there's really no rules. The tone and mood is also super different than anything that you're going to do with these histories in academia. Zines are much, much more casual than academic writing. You can really take any tone that you want. They're usually really silly and irreverent. They're supposed to be fun, right? You're not trying to get published. You're not trying to like win over any editors. You can just speak directly to your audience in any way that you want to. If you aren't a super irreverent and silly person, they are extremely emotive. So it can be angry, it can be sad, it can be really creepy, tender, whatever you think the tone and mood of your oral history is, you can convey that through your zine. And you also have the chance to add visuals. The visual component of a zine makes a huge, huge difference. And if you're feeling freaked out, like I am not an artist, I can't do it, don't worry. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you some ideas. But if you just make your zine with only words, I promise it's going to be kind of boring and kind of lame. And not a lot of people are going to be interested in it. So make sure that you're really considering how the visuals can affect the tone and mood of your zine. There's tons of artistic flexibility in zines, which for me is the funnest part. That zines truly have no rules whatsoever. You can experiment with form, style, genre, and art techniques. You can, you could like act it out and take photos. You could write it as a horror story. You could write it as a poem. You could write a song and put lyrics and the music as a little songbook for your zine. There's just so many things you can do with the writing. And then the art brings this whole other element of different ways that you can tell this story. You can combine different stories and ideas. So if your oral history is reminding you of like another story that you know, or maybe an experience you've had in your own life, you could have it every other page is their story and your story, or you could layer the stories on top of each other within the narrative using different fonts. Or you could relate your oral history to the larger context of what was happening during that time. So if you talked to an Iraqi war vet, you could talk about the war in Iraq. You could even talk about your own experiences. Um, I'm assuming most of you were kids probably when that happened, of what that was like to watch your country go to war. There are just so many possibilities. Don't be afraid to bring in new and different elements that you're interested in. You can make your zine as big or as little, complex, simple, weird, like whatever you want it to be. It's really a representation of you and your interests and your own style. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to do something that like doesn't quite work, because the fun of it is you're just photocopying it and distributing it. You're not hurting anyone by doing that. So feel free to really experiment. The only thing that I would say with oral histories is to be mindful that you are telling someone else's story, right? So how can you respect their reality? How can you make sure that you're representing what they said with a lot of honesty, even if you're bringing in your own opinion and ideas on top of it? That you always want to consider, like, if the source found this zine, what would they think about it? And make sure that you feel proud of the work that you've done. All right. So first, we're going to learn some different folding techniques. I'm going to get us out of this screen for a minute. Zines can be really, really simple. You can just take a piece of paper and fold it in half, and that's your zine, right? And then you have a bunch of different pages stapled together down the center, super easy, not difficult. I have a whole stack right here that look like that. I would encourage you to do this style if it's your first zine. It's the easiest. There is a little bit of like finagling when you print it to make sure that you're printing the right thing on the right page, right? Because like the front and back cover is one page, so you're not going to do page 1 and page 2 on the same sheet of paper. But there are lots of guides online. You can also email me if you need some help, if you're freaking out about how to print it. But like I said, this is the easiest way. However, with zines, the sky is the limit, and there are lots of really fun and different techniques on how to fold zines that you can experiment with. So we're going to do one right now together, just so you can get a little taste. So you will need one sheet of paper. So grab that, and I will do this along with you. If it doesn't make sense, feel free to rewind a little bit and try and parse it out. If you get too frustrated, it's okay. Just let it go. No one will mind. But I know you can do it. So we're going to take our paper, and first we're going to fold it in half. And I guess this would be hamburger style. And I like to pinch with my fingernails so that way I get this really nice crisp edge. And then we're going to fold in half again, but I like to like open it back up so again I get those crisp edges. So this time fold it in half hot dog style. So it's looking like this. Now I'm just going to fold it over. And then you're going to fold it in half one more time. Make sure you get that crisp edge. So you have this little sheet that looks like this. When you undo it, you have 4 panels on one side, 4 on the other, so 8 total, right? So now undo it so that it looks like this, and fold it in half hamburger style again. And this time, I'm gonna hold it up. So here it is hamburger, and bend those down so they look like little wings, right? And that's just gonna help us see where we're at. And when you look at your paper, there's this middle line right here that goes up to your wings. And we're going to take our scissors and we're just going to cut on that line up to the wings, not all the way through the whole paper, just like that. So now we have a little mouth, okay? So we had it like this, hamburger style, folded this half down so we have these wings, cut a line up to the wings, and now we have this mouth. And now this is the trickiest part, okay? So hold it like this, so we have a mouth or like little legs. You're gonna take your fingers on each end and bring them up towards each other, okay? And now straighten out your folds. Okay. So now we have an X. And then we're gonna take it, these 2 sides, and fold them into each other. When we do that, we now have a little self-contained book. Doesn't need any staples, packed. My folding was a little sloppy, so I have some wonky edges. But this could be it. You could make this tiny little miniature zine. It's really small, fits in your hand, of 1/8 of a page. No staple, nothing. You could draw in it and then photocopying it. It's just one-sided actually. So if I take this book, here I'll grab a marker to show you. And I draw here, I'll draw an arrow down on each page. And our back cover. So when we unfold this to photocopy it, one side is totally blank. The other side has all of our images. And as you can see, the images go in opposite directions. And that's just because of how we folded it. And we can fold it back up. And we have our book again. So really easy. You did it. You made your first zine. You have the actual form done. It's just that simple. Let's share our screen again. Perfect. Okay. There are so many different little tips and tricks like that on how to fold a zine. There are probably endless ways that you can do it. If that was super fun for you, check out some other techniques, look it up on YouTube. There's a million tutorials. Try Googling some different folding patterns. This little tutorial is the one that we just did. But if you did not like doing that at all, it doesn't matter to you, you don't think sculpturally in the same way, like I said, just take your 8.5 sheets, fold them in half, staple down the middle, boom, you got it. That's just as good as any other style. All right, so now we are going to get into some exercises. This first one is a word association exercise. The reason I'm having you do this is because it just loosens up your brain. I do some of these little exercises even when I'm writing a paper, just because I think that a blank page or sitting down to think, okay, I'm gonna write my whole zine right now is super intimidating. You're not gonna do it. You're gonna freak out unless you're like the most disciplined, focused person in the world. It's really helpful to have some little exercises to ease you into the process. And so we're gonna do a couple today. For this exercise, it's a word association. I will give you a word and then you will write down a word you associate it with, then a word after that, then a word after that, etc. And we will do that for 30 seconds. I'll just time you here because 30 seconds is short. For a couple of these little exercises, I'll have you time yourself, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah, you'll have 30 seconds. Don't spend too much time thinking about your next word. It's not this huge serious thing. Just do whatever word first comes to mind. You want to have a pretty good list at the end of the 30 seconds that we're going to use. And you are associating with the word right before it. So if the word is star, your next word might be moon, and then shine, and then tinfoil, potato, garden, worms, right? Like that moves so far away from the word star. They don't all have to blend into the same category. You're just associating with the word before it, okay? So make sure you have some paper and a writing utensil. Make sure you're all set up and ready to go, and pause the video if you need a minute to set up. But I am going to start timing you for 30 seconds. So get your writing utensil ready. And the word that we are going to associate with, our starting word, and I just chose this from a random word generator, is message. M-E-S-S-A-G-E, message. And we're going to begin right now. We're halfway through. And 3, 2, 1, done. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to do. Now, we are going to take that list and you're going to use the first and last word from your list in a sentence describing your day yesterday. And I'll just read through all of these and you can pause the video if you need some time to write all these sentences. The next one is using any 3 words from the list in a sentence describing your celebrity crush. And the last prompt is using a word in the very center of your list, so count down from the edges, in a sentence describing what you would do if you won the lottery. So go ahead and pause the video, get your sentences, and I'll meet you back here. And I will share my sentences so that you don't feel like a huge dork if your sentences were crazy or weird. My first sentence is, yesterday felt like trying to carve a letter into a stone wall. Very moody. My second sentence, my celebrity crush description is, they kind of look like a Victorian prince and they have a heart of gold. And my last sentence is, I would turn my money into gold coins and swim in it like Scrooge McDuck. That's it. Really simple, easy, but we have like dipped our toe in the water where we don't have this blank page sitting in front of us. And we can move on to our next exercise. This is like a really good one. This is the one I use before writing a paper when I'm just procrastinating and like watching everything on YouTube and looking at everything on Instagram. I'll do this exercise to just really get me into that headspace. So I'm going to have you set a timer for yourself so that we don't have this like awkward 3-minute pause in this video. So, you know, use your phone, use your computer, and set a timer for 3 minutes and use the whole entire time to write this. So if you like run out of things, start getting into all the nitty-gritty details, but you're going to describe your surroundings at this very moment. So whatever that looks like for you, that's what you're describing. And you want to use all 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, and use as many details as possible. So try and really get into it. And I haven't said this, but I would recommend writing by hand, not on your computer. Even though that might be like what you end up using when you make your zine, is writing and printing it out and copying and pasting. Writing by hand is a different relationship with your brain. It signals different parts of your brain. It's a really different experience than writing on a computer. When I'm writing a paper, I do this exercise on the computer. But for now, I really want you to write on paper by hand. So make sure you're doing that and pause the video and come back when you're done. Okay, so now we are super, super warmed up. And now we're going to do a writing exercise to really get into what we are talking about in the zine and what you're going to be writing about, which is your oral history. I'm pretty sure all of you have conducted your history at this point. If not, you might be in a little bit of trouble. You might have to come back later to do this exercise. But it's kind of like a close reading, but it's a really quick analysis. You don't have to listen to your oral history while you write it. If you have a transcript, that would be super handy. I don't know if you do, but consider what stories you want to tell from your oral history for the zine. You're not going to be able to write every single thing that you talk about, or that the subject talks about, rather. So make sure that you are choosing a couple things that you're really interested in, and we're going to do a quick analysis of that right now. This just really helps get your brain going. Again, we're going to write by hand on paper. And even if you don't end up making a zine, this is really, really going to help anything that you end up doing with this oral history to have these ideas written down. So you're going to answer 6 questions. I don't have it timed. This is definitely going to take longer than I think any of the other exercises that you're doing today. So take as much time as you need. It doesn't have to be super, super long. I would say like 10 to 15 minutes working on this, and go through these 6 questions. So, and I'm going to take a little drink of water. Okay, so the first question is, what are the facts in this oral history? Who are the characters? Where is the setting? What time period is it in? What actually happens in the story, the anecdote that they're talking about? Jot down all the facts, everything that you need to know to understand the story. The second question are, what are the feelings? What are the feelings of all of the characters in this story, including the speaker, but most importantly, I think the speaker. Really tap into how they felt while they were telling it, as well as how they felt while it was happening, if you can. So you might realize that your speaker mostly talked about feelings and not facts, or that they mostly talked about facts and not feelings. That's okay. That's going to help you decide what the tone of your zine should be. So don't freak out. Speakers are totally different. Some of you are going to have way more feelings. Some of you are going to have way more facts. That's totally fine. Number 3 is kind of like this close reading of the text itself. And I say text in quotes, right? Because probably a lot of you are just listening to our recording. Are there interesting word choices, metaphors, or phrases? And think about like your memory of what you remember people saying, and then maybe go back and listen to it. Because that can be really interesting to see like what your impression of the speaker was, as opposed to like what they actually said. Anyway, but make sure that you're looking for these like really interesting word choices. If they use any metaphors, that can be really helpful when you are considering your visuals for the project. And are there any phrases that you really, really want to make sure that you are quoting directly in your zine because you loved the word choice that they used? Sorry. It sounds like I'm crying, but but my throat is just a little tired. Yeah. Think about, do you want to use direct quotes in your zine? Do you want it to be more like a transcript? Or do you kind of hate the word choices that they used and you would rather like retell the history yourself? Number 4 is what your experience was as the listener. So think about how you felt during and after, why you chose your subject to begin with, what your relationship to your subject is. Like all of those things can be included in your zine and can be a really interesting and, like I said, intimate component of the work. And if you don't end up using that, it's also just nice to remind yourself like what you're actually aiming for with these oral histories, so that when you choose your next subject, you can get closer to like what your intention is. Number 5 is, what does this oral history remind you of? So this can be really, really broad. It can be other speakers that you've heard. It could be a movie. It could be your own experience. It could be songs. It could be colors. And really try and take your time on this one, because this is going to help spark some ideas in your mind of what you should do for your zine. So it seems like kind of the throwaway question. I promise it'll be like super, super, super helpful in your creative process if you allow yourself a lot of time and space to consider it. Number 6 is, what questions do you still have? What is remaining unanswered by your speaker? Is this something that you can research yourself and include in your zine? Do you need to do a follow-up interview with your subject? Are some of these questions like much bigger and broader? Did you think that this was answered, but now that you've done this really quick analysis, you're realizing, wait a second, I don't think I ever got an answer on that, right? That goes back to like the facts and feelings that you think, oh, I know exactly how they felt when that happened. And then you listen to it and you realize that they didn't say their feelings at all. So that could be really helpful in doing a follow-up and thinking about what you're going to need to flesh out a little bit more in your zine. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to take some water and I'll meet you back here when you are done. Okay. And you probably came back and just listened to me drink water. Okay, sweet. Now we're going to set our writing aside for the moment and we're going to talk about the visuals. Some of you, I already know, are freaking out. You're very uncomfortable. You are thinking of just skipping all of the little exercises that I have for us to do. Please, please don't. Art truly is for everyone, and art in zines is definitely for everyone. And I'm going to have some real examples to show you that you'll see. Like, zines can be super, super like artsy and like fine arty and super refined, or they can literally just be scribbles. Like, there is such a wide range. No one is the worst artist. Some of my favorite zines that really are based in drawing are drawn by people who really can barely draw. It's all about like the tone and how you interpret your subject through the visuals. So don't be scared. We're going to do this together. It's going to be fun, I promise. Our first exercise is called Blind Bones. This exercise comes from Linda Berry, who is this really amazing comic artist. She also does a ton of creative education. So she has a lot of books that are about drawing and writing and like opening yourself up creatively. That being said, her style is not hoity-toity. Her advice is truly, truly for everyone. And she loves to like tap back into our child self. So don't be scared. You're gonna do great. Maybe I'm like talking about fear too much and I'm just making everyone more nervous. So I'll stop. Everyone is excited to be here when we're gonna do this. So for this activity, you're gonna need a piece of paper and you're going to need some instruments that make colors. So whether you chose markers or crayons or colored pencils, any of that is fine. And you're going to grab a yellow, a red, and a blue. If you don't have those colors, think about having one color that's really light and one color that's kind of medium and one color that's dark. And it'll still look great. And for this one, I'm gonna let you set your own timer again so that we're not just like sitting here in silence on the Zoom presentation. And you'll set a timer for 1 minute. And this is the most important part. You are going to have your eyes closed for the whole entire time that you're drawing. Do not open your eyes. Don't be tempted. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. Your eyes are closed. And you're going to draw a complete skeleton from head to toe in yellow. That's going to be the first one. After you do that, reset your timer, grab your red instrument, whatever it is, and you're going to repeat the same exercise over your same drawing. So you're not grabbing a new piece of paper, you're not doing it next to your yellow skeleton. You're going to draw directly on top of your skeleton, again with your eyes closed, and you're going to do it again in red. Then do that one more time, a third minute in blue. Okay, so all of these are going to be layered on top of each other. And then once you're done, come back to our video. Make sure to pause it. And I will share mine. So that is my skeleton drawing on the left. On the right, this is from one of Linda Berry's books. I can't remember which one this is in. It's okay. But yeah, if you want to check out Linda Berry, she's really great. And she talks a little bit about this exercise on that page. Another really great way to just loosen yourself up is to try and draw the whole skeleton with closed eyes in just 30 seconds. So those are my little attempts at doing that. It's a lot harder, and you'll be like a lot more thoughtful about these little details than you thought. You'll kind of see what's important. But the fun thing about doing this like tri-color skeleton is they all end up looking cool. Like my drawing kind of looks like he's walking along. Linda's, he looks like he's swaying back and forth. And she says, I think that she has it on here. Maybe not. Oh yeah, I'm always surprised by how alive these drawings are. That they do have this like vibrancy. They're really fun, and anyone can do them. And she recommends doing this technique with any object just to loosen yourself up. And if you're feeling stuck creatively, even if you're not going to draw in your final zine, this just puts you in a more like visual headspace. So highly recommend. Our next exercise is a one-line shoe. So go to your closet and pull out a shoe. And what we are going to do is take a piece of paper and you're going to fold it in half. And so that it has 4 quadrants. So that's front and back, right? In the first quadrant, write 15 seconds. In the second quadrant, write 30 seconds. Third, 45 seconds, and fourth, 60 seconds, okay? So go get your shoe, get your paper ready, come back here. Okay, so what we are going to do, pick a drawing instrument. You can use a pencil or pen, or you can use any color that can make it a little more fun. And you are going to draw your entire shoe without lifting your instrument from your paper. So you're never going to pick your pencil up so that it's just one solid line all the way through. Obviously you can like retrace lines, you can go back, but do not lift up your pencil. If you're tempted, don't do it. It's not worth cheating on this little exercise you're doing by yourself at home. For this one, I will time you because the timing is going to go fast. So we're going to draw the same shoe 4 times. The first one, like it says on your paper, it's just going to be for 15 seconds. So it's super, super quick. So get your paper ready, put your shoe where you can see it. Try and spend most of your time looking at your shoe and not your paper as you draw. It's okay if it looks crazy. It's a 15-second drawing. And we're going to start when you're ready. So pause the video, get ready. Now that you're ready to go, we're going to start. On your mark, get your pencil down on your paper. On your mark, set, go. And stop. Okay, that is your first drawing. Now, we're going to draw the same shoe again. You can change the direction of your shoe if you want to kind of switch it up, or you can leave your shoe exactly where it is. You can change the color of your drawing instrument if you want to. But this time we're going to do it for 30 seconds. So, are you ready? Get your paper all set. And we are going to start on your mark, get set, go. Three, two, one, stop. Okay. Now you know what to do. Rearrange your shoe if you want. Turn your paper over. Go to your 45-second quadrant. I'm gonna need to use a different timer. Okay, and when you're ready, on your mark, 45 seconds, on your mark, get set, go. And remember, you are not lifting up your pencil. So just one solid line all the way through. Don't cheat. In 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay, this is our final drawing. It's gonna feel really, really long after 15 seconds. It's definitely gonna feel long if you're refusing to do this exercise and you have to sit here and watch me be silent. I guess you can just fast forward ahead, but try drawing a shoe. We're gonna do this one for 1 minute. Get your paper ready. And when you're ready, on your mark, get set, go. In 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay. So now would be the really fun time that we would all show each other our goofy drawings and talk about how the different time limits felt. And sadly, we can't do that. I'm kind of bummed, but um, I hope that you're thinking about how they felt. What are the differences in your drawing? I will show you my drawings. And obviously they get way more detailed as we go along, right? Something I think is really interesting is that until the 60 seconds, I did not count the number of laces on my shoe. But in that first 15-second drawing, I still get that number right. And I think it's because in those 15 seconds, I was really only staring at my shoe and I wasn't staring at my paper because it was so fast that I didn't have the time to go back and forth. Um, this is just a reminder to really look at the details of what you're making. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be hard, but think about all these little intricate things that made up your shoe. And when you're making your zine, think about all these little details. Um, I would encourage you to include some goofy little drawings like these. They can be really, really fun and add this really quirky element. I've done entire zines using blind contour where I'm not lifting my pen and I'm also not looking at my paper. I have my eyes closed or I'm looking at the subject like I did for that first shoe, and they're a lot of fun. Um, so if you like it, include it. If you don't, revel in the fact that you just open up a new creative part of your brain. Think about how it felt different than anything that you've done and how spending more time on it, how that really changed how you were perceiving your shoe. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the meaning of lines and shapes. And I made this presentation, I think like double the length that it is now. I hope it still isn't too long because there's so many things to include, especially for people who are really new to art making. But a big one that I decided to leave in because I cut tons and tons out is talking about lines and shapes because not every zine has direct illustrations. You don't need to make collages. You don't need to like print out screenshots or, oh, pardon me, or draw or any of these things if you don't want to. Um, but like I said, if you just only have words, it's going to look really boring. So I'm going to show you some examples of how you can use lines and shapes to really enrich and enhance your zine. What is interesting to me about line and shape, it seems so basic, but they tell completely different stories. And I thought about showing you some examples first, but I think it's better if you just go into this blind. So for this exercise, you're gonna fold your paper in half 4 times. Use your fingernail, make it really crisp because those little tiny folds are gonna get real sloppy as you go along. But you're gonna fold it in half 4 times. At the end, you'll have 16 sections, little baby sections of your paper. And that's just on one side. For each section, you're gonna draw the lines or shapes that represent this list to our right of the different emotion states. So for each little section, you'll do a different one, and you can only use lines and shapes to convey these different emotions or states of being. Some of these are going to feel easier than others. There are no wrong or right ways to do this. Again, if we were in person and could compare, it's always interesting to see how much they line up with each other on some of these, that like everyone is drawing the exact same kind of line. And then on some, everyone is doing something totally different. So there's no wrong way to do it. It should only take you 2 to 5 seconds for each section. If you're really stuck, just do the first thing that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can always go back and evaluate and consider how you could do something better or how you could convey it better. But like I said, some of these are really tricky. So don't stress about it. You don't need to time yourself. Just give yourself a couple seconds for each one. Only use lines and shapes. You can use repeating lines, you can use one line, you can use repeating shapes, one shape, whatever you want. There's no wrong way to do it. After you're done, I will see you back here and I'll be drinking my water again. Okay, man, I don't know how professors make these Zoom lectures. It's really hard on your throat. Okay, this is my little sheet that I did. Like I said, nothing special. Some of these I look and I'm like, I don't think I nailed it. Some might be really similar to what you have. Some might be totally different. But each of them really has a different tone, right? And some are closer than others. Like calm and angry look really different, but angry and I think frustrated is one of them that probably look pretty similar. So when you are actually making your zine and you're considering the mood and tone of your zine, you want to pick lines and shapes that go along with it. That's the whole point, right? So if for, let's say calm, you did something similar to me, that's like my little circle with the line on each side. There's a lot of white blank space. That has a really calm feeling to me. If I wanted to make a zine that was super energetic and I was telling a story that was really like frenetic and kind of with a lot of motion in it, making a zine where every page is mostly white blank space is not going to fit that tone, right? If I want it to be really calm and I use all these little scribbly lines, that's not going to convey the right tone either. So really consider that. And I'm going to show you some examples of how this actually works in your zine, because I do think that what you're all going to end up using the most are lines and shapes. So that can be in your background patterns, how your photographs and graphics are cropped and arranged, the balance of your text on the page, and the flow of the text on your page. I just went through that really quick because we're going to go into each one in detail. So background patterns, how do these change the meaning and message and tone of your zine. So all of these have the same sentence, right? I decided to take matters into my own hands. But they have really different feelings. The first one is super energetic. All of the lines are pointing up to the corner, so it has this really forward motion. You can see the white box around the text, so that gives it this really stark contrast. I think the mood of it is this like fast pace, this fast motion. It's really upbeat. So it has like kind of a more optimistic feeling to it, that now that you've taken matters into your own hands, things are on the up and up. The next one can be taken a couple different ways, I guess. It could be really calm and smooth and more introspective, right? So maybe taking matters into your own hands mostly happen in your own brain, right? The lines go to the very edge of the page, so they're like guiding you to the next page, which the first example also does. But it's like a much slower and calmer pace. But if you're telling a really creepy story, all this white space and these like little forward motion lines that are so soft and subtle might have like a very ominous style and make things feel a little creepy, right? So it's also the context of your other pages and what's going on there of how your pages are going to feel. And then the last one uses a shape that has a super strong metaphor already attached to it and a strong meaning attached to it. So when I see that, I think, oh, this is about someone telling their crush that they like them or proposing marriage, right? Because I know what hearts mean. If it's not about that, that would be totally crazy to use all these hearts on that page. But sometimes I think when we are making something and we're feeling nervous or like our abilities aren't that great, we think, well, I'm really good at doodling hearts, or I can draw stars, so I'll do that. And then it completely messes with the tone of your zine. So make sure that whatever you're choosing to do, if you decide to just do background patterns, that it's really complementary to your tone. All right, here are some real examples. Like I said, this one on our left, I also chose because the drawings are nothing to write home about, right? They're just goofy and fun. This guy, he does tons and tons of zines, and they all have just this very goofy and relaxed style. So don't overthink it. But if he had just left all of that space behind these drawings white, it would look really different and it would have a very different energy. It would be a lot calmer, kind of boring. But when he does these very jagged lines behind it and this contrast of the black and white, it's a lot more interesting to look at, and it's a lot more energetic and vibrant. And it makes that little drawing in the bottom corner kind of like, what's the word? Like he's a champion, like that there's a victory because he has these like shining lines coming out of him. I don't know. That's how I see it. The next one, in their background, they did use this shape, right, of the stamp, layers and layers of stamps over each other through collage, and it's a zine about letter writing, right? And I can pick up on that super quickly because I know the metaphor of this shape and of this emblem. So again, sometimes when we are making collages, especially, we might think like, oh, this looks really cool. And that can be fun too, right? Like you can just put Michael Jordan on everything and everyone will love it. But if you want your zine to be super cohesive, really think about what images and shapes already have meaning that you can put on your cover and throughout your story so that people can look at it and already know what you're talking about. The last example, again, this is like they're just lines, but it has meaning for us, right? We know that this is like counting lines. We've seen it before. And the sheer amount of them really, it makes it kind of ominous to me that either like a lot of time is passing or a huge amount of something is happening. I think that this poem, it's a poetry zine, is talking about industrialization and mass production. So it does sort of have this ominous tone. If they chose to do this pattern and it had no connection to the words, it would just be weird, right? Like, always make sure that whatever pattern you're using behind your writing really matches up, either in shape or in metaphor and meaning. Okay, let me grab some water. Ooh, okay. The next thing is graphic arrangement of how you are cropping and arranging your graphics, whether you're using photos or collage elements or your own drawings. How you arrange them on the page is going to be really different. So all of these 3 fictitious covers are called Week in the Mountains. They all use the same photo, they all use the same font, but they have really, really different feelings. The first one is this circle, so it's kind of calm and cozy. It could also be like you're looking at the mountains through like a telescope or binoculars. So there's this kind of distance from the mountains to it. The next one, it is a lot more dynamic, right? It has an organic shape, so it follows the shape of the mountains themselves. It's a lot more up close, so it almost feels like you're in the mountains. It's a lot more, I guess, like rugged, I think, because of that. So you're not just like sleeping in a cozy little tent, you're like climbing the mountains. It feels a little hostile, these like huge jagged mountains. So really different tone. And the last one has this grid pattern to it, right? So I think uh, of industrialization and human interaction with nature instead of just the nature itself. So while in the middle zine, you're kind of in the mountains, there's this huge removal in this last scene. And to me, it represents more this relationship between man and nature, or between quote unquote civilization and nature. Um, Both look as good as the other, I would say, but they have a very different tone. So when you are making your cover, especially, but all of the writing within your zine, make sure that your images really match your tone, even through these like simple cropping techniques. Here are some examples. The one on the left is written in Deseret, which is like an old Mormon alphabet. So it has this religious quality to it. And then you see these angels, but then it has these power lines, right? So you get an interesting mashup of images. But looking at the arrangement of the images themselves, they create a strong focal point, right? Because everything is pointing to the poem and pointing to the center of the page. The sweeping lines also do that. And it also, the symmetry of it, to me, has like this very majestic feeling to it. It's very formal. Symmetry is usually more formal than asymmetry. And it gives it a different tone, right? The example on our right are just simple photographs, but they're arranged over one another, and you can see the tape intentionally that that put these photographs on the page. So it feels very scrapbooky, right? And very informal. It's also a little more dynamic when you layer images. Like this page itself, right? The images are separate. It's a little boring to look at. When you layer your images on top of each other, having corners overlapping like that, it's just a little more interesting to look at. And it does give it this kind of cozier feeling, if that's what you're going for. Or it points out the importance of one image over the other. So in this one, you know, this grave marker becomes a focal point, while this image of a person walking in the graveyard is kind of the background. Okay, text balance. So how big your font is, which words are bigger than other words, where your font is on the page, all gives a very different meaning. So this example, the sentence "help, I'm lost," right? If these were two separate covers of scenes, they could be about the same thing. But in one, I feel like we're more focused on this interaction with the reader themselves. That when you have help really, really big, it's like you're shouting out to your reader. In the next one, when it's lost, that's more about you telling your own story, and it's more focused on yourself, right? In the first one, it is about, even if you're not directly demanding that your reader help you, it is about this engagement of seeking help. In the second one, it's about the experience of being lost, right? Those might be the exact same story, but it's your take on it, and it's how you're interpreting the story in a really different way. So make sure that your text and the way you arrange it, and if you embolden any words, right? Like we do these things in Word documents as well, of how we draw attention to certain things. But think about size and placement, and how that can affect it as well, because you have a lot more flexibility in a zine. The example I chose, um, this zine is a lot about the desert, and it's about open spaces. And you can see Deseret, the language written down there again. But because they chose to keep their title at the very, very bottom of the page underneath these really small mountains, and then you have this huge, huge, huge blank space, it really starts to feel like you're in this open desert, right? It can be very calming. It can, like I said, be a little ominous. But that would be very different than if the title was in the very center of the page, or if it was written really big on the page. So, there are all these like tiny little details that can make your zine more and more and more dynamic and interesting. So, really consider these choices as you make them. Okay, text flow. So we have the same sentence. She wouldn't tell them, but they did not want to know. Okay, our first example, it's like pretty straightforward. But in this next example, there's this huge split in the middle. And I also split it up into two sentences, right? So it has this much more ominous feeling to it. And it causes you, when you're reading it, to take this big pause. Uh, and it puts a lot more weight on each of these sentences than if they were stuck together. Again, a paper, you're not really afforded this sort of creative use of the page. So really take it to your advantage, and consider how you want your text to be arranged. Are there sentences that you want to have a lot more emphasis on, right? So that could be size, but also you could leave all this blank space around that sentence to draw attention. If you have a paragraph that's really heavy, that's like a really intense part of the story, and you want to give your reader a little mental break, it's nice to, on the next two pages, only have images, right? Or only have like one little sentence, so that they have this room to breathe and pause, after reading something heavy. So there are so many ways you can do that. You can also use this to like tell jokes. This real zine example, it's one of my favorite zines. It's about a little skeleton, not knowing how to be an adult and what to do with their life. So they have this little plane saying, "What do you want to do?" And the skeleton, I guess I just realized that we have multiple skeletons in this presentation. I guess they are on the brain. Who doesn't like a skeleton, right? Anyway, and the skeleton is running away from it, right? So leaving this huge blank space changes the scale of the drawing, but it also really reinforces this joke about this skeleton who like doesn't want to be an adult. Some more examples of this. So the zine on the left and the zine in the center. The zine on the left is about global warming, right? So it looks more like an academic paper. It has all these charts and graphs. everything is very straight and rigid. The paragraphs follow our, I guess, professional structure of how they are arranged on the page. It's very neat and tidy. The next zine, I think, was made by 10-year-old girls, if I remember right, about how much they don't like Taylor Swift. And even the layout of the page is a lot more goofy, right? It's handwritten. They have these diagonal lines. The writing is sort of shoved in wherever. It's a much looser style, but it really conveys the meaning of their zine, right? That it's very conversational, it's very goofy and fun and lighthearted. It doesn't take itself too seriously. They use some little stickers in there. So, and it's handwritten, right? So again, really think about when you arrange your text and when you're arranging it with visuals. Not only what visuals are you choosing, right? So the global warming zine uses graphs and charts and very serious official things because that's the tone of the zine, right? You could also talk about global warming in a casual way, but theirs is more scientific. If you're doing something more casual, having a bunch of charts and graphs about Taylor Swift could be funny, right? You could do it in an ironic way. But it's a very different tone than this like handwritten, scrawled to the side of some diagonal lines. Okay. I did not think I would be doing a huge analysis of a Taylor Swift zine made by children, but here we are. That's the fun of zines. And then our last example, and you probably made these in elementary school. I know they have a name. I can't remember what it is, where you write a poem in the shape of the thing you're writing about. But this is a poem about a labyrinth. So the writing itself is in the shape of a labyrinth. And kind of cool, right? So think about how you can arrange your writing to convey your meaning. Is that really the end of those? All right. So we are done with all of our exercises. I hope you have some time set aside right now to start working on your official zine, because your brain is all warmed up and you're thinking about all these things. So if you can't, at least jot down some notes about what you want to do. Take a moment now and consider your oral history and what kind of zine you think it should be. Okay, so I have some questions. The first is, what is the mood and tone of your zine, right? I've been talking about this the whole time. It's really important to decide that, and you have free range to decide. Don't think just because your subject matter was super serious that you can't do a zine that's kind of funny and lighthearted or sarcastic. Like I said, with the Taylor Swift example, right? A super serious zine about Taylor Swift would be really funny and awesome. So you can do things ironically, or you can transform your oral history into something totally different when you choose what the mood and tone is going to be. I would love to see at least one horror, like creepy zine come out of this. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm sure someone can do it. So if you make one, make sure to email me and I'll give you my email at the end. The next question, oh, here we go. What genre do you want to use, right? You can really do anything. If you want to write it as a play and it's a script, like I said, if you want to do a song, if you want to do poetry, you know, matching it with your mood and tone, of course, but play around with genre. Like, this is an opportunity to do something really different than you would in a regular history class. And do you want to layer any stories or ideas? So if you do want to relate it to a bigger issue and include that information, you totally can do that. If you want to layer it between like different experiences in your subject's life, right? From when they were a child to an adult to an older person, you can do that too. So think about if you want to add multiple layers, or if there's a song that your story really reminds you of, you could just have the lyrics and music at the top and bottom of your pages and never really even address it directly. that's the really cool thing about zines, is that they allow you to layer these different concepts and ideas. So consider if you want to do that. Since we spent a lot of time talking about lines and shapes, even if you are going to draw or collage, which I encourage, so many of the examples I shared include those things, but they're still considering the line and shape of the drawing, of the collage. So really think about what sorts of lines and shapes fit the tone of your zine. And what you want to use. And again, like, please jot these things down, because you're not going to remember if you come back to this in a couple weeks. So make sure that you just scribble some lines or shapes, so that you remember what you were thinking as you wrote this. The next question is, what images fit this tone? So we talked about that a little bit. Obviously you want your image to correspond to what you're writing about. It's weird when it doesn't. Also, maybe that has a deep symbolic meaning for you. That's totally fine too. If there's like a movie character that you keep thinking about with your oral history subjects, maybe include them into your collage, or some like TV stills or film stills. You can include charts and graphs. You can really include anything, seriously. So think about what images you want to use, and if you need to print them out or draw them, so that you have those ready when you start putting your zine together. The next question is, how should the text be arranged? And you'll probably get into this more as you're actually building and crafting your zine. But if you know that you want some points to stand out, think about making those points in a bigger font, right? Or think about, where do I want blank space? Where do I want to fill all of the space and make it kind of more chaotic? What font do you want to use? Do you want to make your text follow the shape of something? That's a nice thing when you're cutting and pasting. It's so much easier to do that, unless you're like a Photoshop genius, right? Or you just use Photoshop regularly. You might not know how to do that. So take advantage that you can really lay out your text in interesting ways. And then the last question is, what research do you need to do to flesh out your zine? So in the earlier writing exercise, when I asked what questions do you still have, or thinking about layering stories, what information needs to be included in your zine so that it makes sense, and so that people are getting the fullest context of what you're talking about. And it's okay if you decide, no, I just want it to be this story that my speaker told me, because I love it. I think it's really fun or interesting and I want everyone to hear it. That's totally fine. Like, you can just keep it on that as well. But make sure that if you do want some more research in your zine, that you are setting aside some time to get that done. And then, of course, jot down any other thoughts that you have, anything that came up in this presentation that you think could benefit you. Take a note right now. I promise you're not going to remember it unless you write it down. So take a minute, answer these questions, write these things down, and then I will see you for just the very end of our presentation. Okay, so after you make your zine, and hopefully you have some good ideas about how to do it, what do you do with it, right? Of course, photocopy it. That is the true nature of zine making, is photocopying. And that's also why I didn't talk a whole ton about color. I did have a bunch of activities for us to do, which is the main reason why I had you bring some coloring instruments today. But like I said, this presentation was so long. But I also realized that probably your zines are going to be black and white, and that is great. That's how most zines are, and usually just with some color on the cover. Anyway, go photocopy it. Make sure to keep the original in a safe space so that you can return and photocopy it again and again and again as you want to. It really sucks when you lose the original copy and you want to make some more zines and you're trying to photocopy photocopies, and it just gets fainter and fainter and sadder and sadder. So make sure to keep it in the safe space. And then you can donate a copy to the library. The Salt Lake Public Library has a zine collection. I think the county library has one at this point. This photo is from the Marriott Library at the U. They have a zine collection. You can donate zines to any of these spaces. I'm not sure what their COVID protocol is right now. So that's why I don't have any contact info listed there. But once this is all over, see if you can donate and distribute your zine through the library. And if you give one to the Marriott Library, that also draws attention to the oral history collection, which is a huge part of why we're doing this, right? So I would highly recommend doing that. Give it to your friends and your family. Give one to the subject that you interviewed for the history. They can be really special. I promise, even if you think this is so dorky, this thing I made, I'm not very good at this, it's not that cool, everyone in your life will be so impressed that you made it, and it will blow them away that you had all this creative ability. So show off a little bit, share your zine with people, and that's also a way to share this oral history that you did. Like, that takes a lot of work, and when you talk to your friends and family, it's hard to just not want to spill every single thing that this person said that you thought was interesting. So you can give them a zine and spare them spare them your long explanation. And the last thing is to distribute it at a zine festival. We actually have 2 local festivals. I should have put the other social media on here. Actually, I'm not sure if they have their own. The Salt Lake Library has one called Alt Press Fest. It is zines. It is also printmaking, and really any sort of do-it-yourself distribution. So it's a lot more broad, but that happens usually in October. They just changed it a couple years ago. This year it was all socially distanced, so people gave zines and then they like mailed out zine packets to people. It was pretty cool. But usually zine festivals have lots of vendors who sit at tables and you can sell your zines. Everyone loves trading zines. So you can bring a big stack with you even if you're not tabling and just trade zines with people, or you can walk around and give your zine away. But the point is to distribute it and to share it. Grid Zine Fest is also another local festival. It happens in the spring. It didn't get to happen this year because of COVID. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe we are in a better space in the spring. So follow them on Instagram and keep an eye out for that, because it's another great way to share your zine. But most importantly, make sure that you share it. You know, don't just make a copy for Dr. Basso. If you end up having to do that for your project, make a few more copies and share it around. And the most important thing is to go forth and zine. Go make something. Don't be intimidated. I hope that these activities really helped you feel confident and like you can do this. I know you can. Everyone can make a zine. It's a lot of fun. I will get out of our presentation so you can end on my face. Thank you for indulging me and letting me do all these little activities. I hope that you feel a difference in your brain. It was fun for me just to do them so that I had photos of the examples. It's always fun to talk about zines. If you have any questions or if you need some help on your zine, seriously, even though I'm losing my voice, I would love to help you in any way I can. My email is elizathebrute, ELIZATHEBRUTE@gmail.com. Or you can bug Dr. Basso, but I doubt that he'll get back to you if you try and communicate through him. So feel free to send me an email. If you finish your zine, I would love to at least see a photo of it. Good luck to you. I hope you enjoy this class. I hope you enjoy making your zine. I will finally let you go and go forth and make a zine.